Have you survived the sometimes hellish early game of Menace only to find yourself unsure of what to do with all these new cool squad leaders, powerful gear, and vehicles that you've acquired, and how you can best handle the enemies that are being thrown at you? Well, if you have, worry not, because today on Steal This Squad, I'm going to be talking about three of my biggest, best, and favorite unit builds that have been carrying me through the mid-game and beyond to success in what is quickly becoming one of my favorite turn-based tactics games ever to be released. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including covering builds and strategies and guides for turn-based tactics titles such as Menace, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So today we are continuing the Steal This Squad series, an illustrious series in the history of the channel, by going through what have quickly become my favorite units and squads to use to get me through my current run of Menace. Now, a couple of disclaimers right off the bat. First of all, if you want to jump to specific characters, there are 3 in this video. You will find different chapters for them in the play bar of the video. Second, this is a challenging set of builds, okay? I've not played on expert yet. Some of you are already going to be foaming at the mouth. Unfortunately for you, I don't care. The overall subset of people who are actually going to be playing this game on expert is fairly low compared to normal or challenging. As such, even if you feel that these builds don't work on expert, they will work for the vast majority of people. Finally, there is a lot of variance to be seen in Menace, so you're not going to be guaranteed to have the SLs or the gear or what have you that I'm displaying here today. These are more guidelines, they're inspiration. If you want to directly pull these units and use them for yourself, if you have the relevant gear or some sort of equivalent, awesome, do it. I think it'll do very well for you. However, the idea is more to inspire you to be able to make some more unique, creative, powerful stuff on your own, given some insight into how my brain works with how I play the game and how it can let you enjoy the sandbox that Menace provides, because it is a very nice sandbox overall. Actually, one more note as well before we begin. This is obviously information that is relevant to the current early access build of the game. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be added, a lot of changes that are likely to occur. As such, as time goes by, if you're watching this video, maybe once the full releases come out, or maybe a bunch of major patches, things might not be 100% on the level with where they were when I first recorded the video. Keep that in mind. I can only work with what I've got right now, and once the full release comes out, if there's some major changes that need to be made, I'll probably do some more videos talking about what squads to build then. But for now, seeing as how the full release is probably like a year away, we're working with what we got here. Starting off though, let's talk about Vamplew. So, Vamplew is a very interesting character because he's very clearly designed to be kind of a frontline tank. You don't directly want someone to be tanking constantly in Menace, because that's just how you find yourself constantly pinned, losing squaddies, not able to do anything. However, as far as actual tanks are concerned, and we're not talking about vehicles, Vamplew's probably the best that there is, and the big reason for that is his personal skill, Partir de Rein. I promised myself that I'd be better about pronouncing that when I first started setting up for this video, and clearly I was not ready for it. Apologies for anyone who knows French and knows that I'm absolutely horrible trying to speak it. So, what Vamplew does is every time his squad gets attacked, he gains a stack of pressure. When he gets 4 stacks of pressure, he's able to cash those in for an immediate boost of 60 AP, and this can break the current cap that he has on AP. So if his turn comes around, you've got, for me it's 105 action points because of his growth potential, then you'll wind up having 165 if you choose to activate the skill, which is obviously extremely good. Leaning into that, I have a few other sets of abilities on him here. He's not fully promoted, but he does not need to be to get him in the place that I like him to be for this build. First off, solid grouping, plus 10 accuracy for each consecutive attack versus the same target. This is very nice because especially as you get later into the game and you start encountering very tanky enemies like the Menace, you're not likely going to be just one-shotting them with your first round of attacks, so guaranteeing that you're going to be able to lock in and eliminate a priority target is very good, and solid grouping helps you to do that. I then have buff, plus 3 HP per squad mate, because, again, This is a sort of frontline tank character. He's going to be getting shot at. His dudes are going to be taking damage, so having a little bit of extra HP per guy means not only are you going to be able to keep your overall firepower up by having, more guns left in the squad, but also not having to replace as many squaddies at the end of any given mission, which is obviously very important. Finally, we have Flamboyant, minus 30% supply costs for armor. And this is huge because obviously, for anyone who knows Menace, supply cost is everything. This is very true for challenging, and I'm sure even more true for things like expert. And being able to make sure that you can actually take everything that you need to take, more squads, more armor, more gear, better guns, is hugely valuable. And being able to put a very powerful suit of armor, like we're going to see in a second, on Vamplew for a fraction of the cost, lovely. Absolutely lovely. Once you do get him more levels, things like Disdain to ignore suppression or critical hits are also obviously very good, but you don't need those for this build to be online. As far as his gear and his squad, obviously you're going to want him to have as many squaddies as possible, preferably 8, because this is a full send frontline tank and damage squad. You need squaddies to actually fulfill that role. We do have the Stoneclad CS-185 shotgun. Any other high power close range shotgun that may get added over the course of the game is also going to be very good here, but the CS-185 is already very nasty. It's fairly short range, as you would expect, but it's got great accuracy, good hit point damage, very good armor damage, which we're going to boost because of an accessory that we're going to talk about. It's overall a real brutal frontline weapon, and if you need to just make sure a high priority target is gone, up to and including light vehicles, Vamplew and his shotgun squad will be able to do it for you. Now, we don't have an infantry special weapon here, partially because I just don't really have the points for it with the way my setup is, but also because I don't want Vamplew himself to lose his shotgun, because if you didn't know, when you go in and try to equip a special weapon on an infantry squad, the squad leader holds that weapon and loses their primary as a result. And in this setup, I want to have as many shotguns firing as possible. Now, that said, there are going to be times where the info that I have based on like your current intelligence level will show maybe there's a ton of vehicles or highly armored targets. Maybe you're fighting the Rogue Army, the Menace, and you're going to want some armor piercing stuff. That's where you can absolutely consider taking a PAL, a workshopped RPG, maybe even an SARPG-2 or an I always mess up this name, ASGM2, there we go, to have extra anti-armor firepower. That's totally fine, because you can still achieve the role that you want Vamplew to achieve, even if you're down a shotgun. Now, the two key aspects here beyond the actual skills are the Boarding Commando jet suit and Rend armor. We'll talk about Rend armor in a second because it's a little bit of a standout due to a patch that just happened. But first of all, the Boarding Commando jumpsuit. This is a set of armor that you get from pirates or other places it might show up in the black market. I'm not entirely sure. Primarily, though, you're going to get it either from killing pirates or getting pirate weapon drops as mission rewards. And this is very, very strong but very expensive armor. First of all, it gives you a ton of actual armor value. 75 is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, you look at some of the best armor that I have right now, and like the Rewa 3, which is one of my other best armor sets, only has 55. The Class 3 Operator has 55. The high intensity setup has 60, still not even getting there. It's very, very tough. And again, given the role that Vamplew has, you want him to be pretty durable. It also comes with minus concealment, which again is great because you want him to get shot at so he can get his AP, but it gives you an infantry slot and the ability to jetpack around the battlefield for 60 AP. Now, this is lovely, because first of all, obviously, you've got shotguns, so you want to have extra mobility to get into range to use them. It also means you don't have to worry about terrain and getting bogged down in groups of enemies or big boxes and piles of debris and whatever. God, destroyed tanks have gotten in my way more times than I can count, so you can navigate all of that, and 60 AP to cast this is exactly the same amount that you can get from his personal skills. So there's some nice overlap of resource availability there. This set of armor alone allows Vamplew to become an absolute menacing cannonball who can throw himself into delicate enemy formations, soft targets, infantry clusters, etc., have a ton of AP left over due to his personal skill if you time things right, and then just unload on them with the shotgun. If this man could get Berserk as well, he'd be probably my favorite unit in the game, but fortunately they didn't break him that much. The jet suit is phenomenal, and his ability to reduce its cost is vital, because otherwise it's generally too expensive to really justify taking. Then we have the Rend ammo that we were just talking about, and this ammo is phenomenal. You get plus 2 damage, plus 15 armor damage, minus 15 armor pen, which is fine, and then of course you can only have 1 ammo accessory. It only applies to projectile-based weapons, whatever. This is phenomenal. Unfortunately, it was broken until the most recent patch. It did literally nothing due to a bug. Now, however, as of patch 4, it does work fully as intended and will apply this extra damage and armor damage to every single buckshot blast that you put out from these shotguns. And this will allow you to shred anything, including, again, like light vehicles, almost instantly. And when you're fighting things like the MENACE that have so much armor that your armor pen really isn't doing enough in the first place, being able to shred that armor to make your own attacks and your other squad mates and or vehicles attacks stronger is hugely beneficial. It's a very simple build, but with this setup, Vamplew becomes a Vanguard unit that can clear the way of, again, soft infantry who would otherwise be like annoying heavy machine gun emplacement teams, mortar teams, sniper teams, etc., or big clusters of heavy infantry or walkers or bugs or the like with very little threat. And even when he does get shot at, you can then get extra AP for your trouble. Do you need to worry about getting suppressed? Sure. Do you need to worry about getting pinned down? Sure, but that's the case for any infantry squad in the game, as long as you're not being completely reckless with where you're jumping into the fray with your jet suit, generally speaking, that won't happen. The biggest time the Vamplew is going to struggle with this build is if you're facing absolute massed mechanized infantry or just straight up armor. Things like a ton of walkers with lasers and heavy machine guns and autocannons will do a number on Vamplew, but really you're only going to encounter that if you're fighting the rogue army and particular rogue army missions. Beyond that, he's going to do a ton of work, and I think you'll be very, very happy with him. Moving on now, we have Greifinger. Greifinger is, in my opinion, one of the single best squad leaders in the game for all-around use, but in particular for stealth assassination use. With Greifinger, you do have to recruit, much like Vamplew, and thus it is a little bit of a task to get him online. But once you have him, I think you'll be very happy with him. He is a 3-star SL, so he's going to come with 110 action points base. He's going to have great stats, and his personal skill, Gorilla, is phenomenal, giving plus 20% accuracy and 30% damage when attacking healthy targets, HP over 80%. This means that due to his natural high stealth, his AP, etc., he becomes a phenomenal sniper assassin squad leader. To go along with that, we have a few particular perks: athletic to reduce move cost and deploy cost, which is great for getting extra accuracy, reducing your profile so you're harder to spot, being able to move into position faster, etc. We then, of course, do have buff as well, because if you get caught out, you do want to be able to keep your squaddies alive a little bit longer. You could argue that something like recover to get minus suppression for each enemy element killed would be nice. Scout is also good for this. There's a lot of abilities that you would really like on Greifinger, but I found that due to the fact that he can kind of get caught out sometimes due to how far forward you place him, which we'll talk about in a second, having that extra HP is very beneficial. We then have Vanguard, which is a vital piece of this kit because it means that you can drop him behind enemy lines in cover, potentially very close to priority targets like HQs, emplacement teams, delicate vehicles, very dangerous menace units that are generally easy enough to pick off, etc. It is a phenomenal first strike option. Anyone and everyone that you can get Vanguard on, you probably should. We'll see that come up again with Rewa when we talk about her. Finally, we have one of his final tier 4 perks, Assassin, plus 30% damage and 20% accuracy against isolated targets. Again, with Vanguard, with Assassin, with the high AP, the stealth, the Gorilla. These two abilities with that package make it almost impossible to fail to kill any priority target that you're going after. And again, later in the game, when you're fighting the rogue army and you're fighting the menace and there's big nasty stuff that's really going to mess up your guys if you don't eliminate it, and it will hide behind other more durable but less important chaff, being able to get Greifinger in there and just finish that off is so strong. To go along with this, we do have a laser rifle, the XL1A14. This is a phenomenal option because you don't need to worry about ammo for it. It is extremely accurate. It is great against armor. It has good armor pen as well. It's just an all-around workhorse weapon. If anyone knows the Imperial Guard from Warhammer 40k, there's a reason that they use las rifles for their basic infantry, right? If I could have these on literally everyone, I probably would. It is a very strong option for Greifinger. You could make an argument for options like the suppressed KR bar, things like that to have more stealth. I've used that plenty in the past as well. but I love the fact that you don't need to worry about ammo here. I love that you have so much armor pen and so much armor damage. The laser rifle is just so good for the way that I use Greifinger. Again, I don't have an infantry special weapon on him here, and it's basically the same argument as Vamplew. Due to the way that I use Greifinger, I don't really want him to lose a rifle in his squad just to get a specialist option. However, if there is going to be a ton of heavy vehicle emplacements, having something like the PAL is something that I do quite a bit because of the fact that with his skill set, I can deploy for 10 mana, or 10 AP, I should say, and then just annihilate armored targets. Can be an option, not my favorite thing to do for all around, like all comers types of encounters, but definitely a viable choice. We then have the SAPP Reche Recon Armor. Again, apologies, I'm not super mil-spec if there's a proper name for this or a proper pronunciation. I don't know it. Please don't crucify me. But this is just great all-around armor. It gives you armor, it gives you durability, it gives you concealment, it gives you infantry and accessory slots. It is expensive. It is the most expensive armor outside of the pirate jet suit that I currently have, but Greifinger uses it very, very well, partially because of those 2 accessory slots, which I almost always have decked out with disposable AT launchers, because you do want to have some of that anti-armor capability. If you drop Greifinger far into enemy lines, because there's, again, like an HQ squad or something you need to drop, but they've got an escort of at least 1, if not 2 walkers, being able to just pick those off willy-nilly is extremely, extremely nice. And because you have a laser rifle, you don't need to worry about packing ammo. He's got good concealment, so you're not worried about like smoke grenades or anything like that. It's just a good all-around package. And that's really all there is to say about it. Greifinger is just insanely strong, and in almost any mission, I can rely on the fact that his Vanguard ability is going to get him into the enemy lines and start wreaking havoc extremely quickly. Now, we do need to talk about Darby for a second, because I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, Darby could do the same thing, and she starts as a playable unit. You don't need to worry about recruiting her, and that's true. However, Darby has one major thing going against her, and that's her personal skill, high-value targets. Unlike Greifinger, who's going to get extra accuracy and damage against most targets that he's going to be shooting, Darby just disables a specialist. If you're fighting vehicles, this does nothing. Against a lot of enemy infantry squads, they might not even have a specialist. And ideally, if you're shooting an infantry squad, you're going to have it dead with these units. You're not worried about disabling their specialist. If you really need to disable a specialist, you want to pack like a DMR, something that's going to let you just snipe them, or like a proper sniper rifle to just take them out entirely, not just disable them for a turn. So I'm really not a huge fan of Darby's personal skill as soon as you get beyond the early game and are much more likely to just eliminate an enemy squad outright. Second of all, she doesn't have the extra damage in her final tier. She does have commando, plus 15% accuracy and defense when isolated, which is good. However, again, you don't want defense on this squad. Darby, or Greifinger, should not be getting shot at all that much. They might take some hits, and again, that's why I've got buff here, but going for a tier 4 ability that's going to give you accuracy when you're already probably insanely accurate with any of these squads, and then defense, when you never want to be getting shot at in the first place, is just a huge miss. Yes, you can take Vanguard. Yes, you do have other options like Covert Ops and Scout, and you can do a lot with Darby, and I do a lot with Darby, but I prefer to take Greifinger whenever I can. So, Darby is a good choice for this build because you can start with her, but I think you'll find if you start with her and then get Greifinger, you're going to wind up switching the role over to him more often than not. He's just that good, and they generally have the same amount of cost. 40 supply cost, 15 promotion tax. Greifinger has a little bit worse growth potential, but growth potential is also pretty awful at the current state of the game, so that's not a huge problem. Finally, we need to talk about Rewa, and we're moving from squads to proper vehicles here, and boy howdy, is Rewa a phenomenal vehicle pilot. There's a reason that she's weary currently in my campaign, because I use her extensively. First of all, let's talk about what Rewa does. She is a 2-star SL, so she's very, like, middle of the road. She starts with a base of 100 action points, solid stats overall. She can grow with growth potential, and you can see that mine has, but overall, she's very baseline. What makes her very nasty is her personal skill, Revel in Slaughter. Plus 6% accuracy and discipline for each enemy unit destroyed stacks up to 5 times. So once you get this rolling, you have a massive boost to your accuracy, and also a character that's not very likely to fold under fire, which is exactly what you need given the way that I use her. We then grab one of her other personal skills, Roadkill, makes run over attacks vastly more deadly. And this is very nice just as a utility option. It's also great because with the way we're building Rewa out, there's a very good chance that you're going to run out of ammo partway through the mission and just be relying on stomping on things with your walker's legs. We then have Zigzag to get extra defense for each tile moved this turn, which is, again, just a great defensive option for being able to move into position before you can start shooting. Is nice for if you're trying to roadkill things. It's just a good defensive option in general, which you need for such an aggressive build. Vanguard, for the exact same reasons that we were talking about it with Greifinger and Darby. You want to have Rewa in the thick of it so she can start shooting things, start stacking Revel and Slaughter, draw fire off of your more delicate allies with her very tanky medium walker. It's just a nice option overall. Things like Finisher to get extra damage and accuracy against suffering enemies, also a big pick. Fury, same thing. There's good choices on Rewa. She has a lovely kit, and as soon as I can give her even more promotions, I'm certainly going to. Finally, in her tier 4, though, are two very nice options. Berserk is the big one. Regain 30 AP after destroying a unit. This only triggers once per turn. However, it does mean using the weapons that I have on her, which we'll go over in a sec, you can fire 3 times a turn as long as you kill one thing. And that is not hard to do if you're firing at the right targets, which most targets are the right targets with this build. Then we do have Commando, which is way better on Rewa than it is on Darby. Again, 15% accuracy when you're isolated and 15% defense when you're isolated. And when you're in a big, bulky walker that's got some armor accessories and things on it, and you're pushing forward into the front line with Vanguard, you're probably going to be taking some shots. So being able to guarantee that you're more accurate when you're firing back and you're taking less damage in the process is lovely and very important, because you can get destroyed if you get overeager with this build. As far as the rest of the build is concerned, we do of course have a medium walker modular. If there ever is a heavy walker that is added to the game, Rewa is going to have it for me. The medium walker is great. It's very expensive, yes. However, it's got a ton of HP, a ton of armor. It's accurate. It gives good discipline. It's got good vision. It doesn't have concealment because it's a giant walker, but that's fine. You don't really need it. And it does have 2 vehicle accessory slots and the ability to have 2 medium weapons equipped. And that is key, because if you have 2 weapons of the same type on a walker like this, they become twin-linked. What that means is, while you don't have the options of like a laser cannon on one arm and a machine gun on the other or whatever, you will fire both weapons simultaneously for only 1 weapon activation's worth of cost in AP and ammo, which obviously massive firepower boost. And to facilitate that, we've got the M6 CMG in both slots. This is the Catacorner heavy machine gun, and it is an all-comers weapon. It does good damage, it does good suppression, it's good at dealing with most armored targets, and certainly with almost all infantry, and it fires a ton of shots. So even if you haven't stacked up your accuracy yet with Revel and Slaughter, you're still more than likely going to at least pin down the target, if not outright kill it, and trigger Berserk. You then have electromagnetic armor and ceramic plating, because at the end of the day, you're launching everything in with these heavy machine guns. You could make an argument for having an ammo accessory that gives you 50% more ammo. That is nice, but I've found that because of the fact that you have so much runover damage with Rewa, and the fact that once you've cleared out whatever she's dealing with and likely run out of ammo, the majority of her responsibility on the battlefield is ended anyway, I don't really need it, and I'd rather have the extra survivability. The electromagnetic armor does give you 33% reduced damage of anything that is not an energy weapon, and then the ceramic plating gives you 50% damage reduction from energy-based attacks. So this is going to give you good damage resistance against literally everything that exists in the game currently, and going to make the medium walker even more tanky and durable. Now, I don't normally have gameplay clips in here because anyone who knows MENACE generally knows what these types of builds will do once you see what you've got going on, what weapons, what items, accessories, skills, etc. you have. But I really want to emphasize the devastation that Rewa can wreak the second you enter a mission. So I'm going to play a clip for you here that shows exactly that.
What? Great shot. Thanks.
And I mean, there you go. The Vanguard force on one entire flank of the battlefield absolutely annihilated instantaneously, with you being able to move up other forces or just push Rewa even further into the soft underbelly of the enemy formation to continue wreaking havoc with this build. It is a full frontal assault. Don't get me wrong. There's no subtlety here, and if it doesn't go right, it's not going to go right. But the vast majority of the time, it goes very, very right, and I absolutely adore it. The raw violence that Rewa brings to the battlefield against literally any faction in the game cannot be oversold, and it allows you to focus so much more of your effort on other harder targets with infantry, vehicle, maybe like ranged artillery support, while she just cleans up on her own. It is so nice to have. I love this build. I cannot wait to keep refining this build, both with more skills for Rewa and potentially better chassis of vehicles and better weapons that I can twin link. There's a ton of fun that you can have here, and she is absolutely the backbone of my force. I'm very much going to miss her for the next mission while I let her rest so that she doesn't wind up having some more severe negative status effects. Use this build if you can. You can build it right from the beginning. You can recruit her right off the bat, and you could probably run it with like Achilles as well, but just the stacking accuracy and discipline, the berserk, the run over, there's just certain things that only she can do, and it is absolutely choice. And that, my friends, is my first Steal This Squad video for MENACE. If you like this video, if you enjoyed these builds, do please let me know in the comments down below. If you have different ways that you would maybe optimize them, make them better, you see issues with them as they currently exist, give that feedback. Strike up some discussion. I'm more than happy to chat with y'all, and I love to see what you guys talk about when it comes to strategy titles in the comments as well. And if you have particular builds either that you would like to see from me for different characters, or builds of your own that have been absolutely crushing it for you in any of your campaigns, yes, even you expert tryhards, I understand. We'll do an expert guide eventually. I just haven't gotten there yet, all jokes aside. But put them down there, show people what you got. Maybe I'll try some of your stuff. Maybe I'll feature it in a video. All that said, though, I think there's a ton of stuff that you can do with MENACE. It is a great sandbox for experimentation, and I'm so very excited to see what else they add and refine over the course of the early access period. If you would like to see more videos like this, please do let me know that as well. I'm loving MENACE. I'm putting a ton of time into it, and I would love to be able to talk about it more as time goes by. That said, though, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.